Greetings everyone, I am Dr. Wolf and I just saw The Mean Six. Oh my goodness, how much has happened in just this one episode. And yet, how much didn't happen in this one episode? It's a bit of a mixed bag, but at the same time, so much fun, holy cow. Wow. I mean, within the very first minute, they're not trying to build up any mystery of what's really going on. They give you the reveal of the main villain, the return of Chrysalis. And yeah, she's taken photos of each of the main six and taken one of their hairs. And within the first few minutes of the episode, it turns out that she's planning on making copies of all of them in the hopes of stealing the elements of harmony for herself. And yeah, that sounds like a very interesting plan. I'm quite fascinated to see where this turns out. But first she has to go through her... She starts monologuing. She starts this prepared speech about how feeble everyone is compared to her, how inevitable their destruction is, how the world will soon be hers. Yammering. She has all pieces falling into place and she kinda has difficulty not talking to herself. But it's kind of fun at the same time. I was kind of expecting that if you're going to be taking a photo and a hair from each of the main six, that this might be some form of mind control, but making actual copies out of pieces of wood, that's a little bit scarier in my opinion. I mean, wow, magic like that exists. Ooh. I'm sure fan fiction potential is just shot through the roof with that. At any rate, you'd think that with this kind of setup, Chrysalis and the Mean Six would be planning to, say, take the main six out of the picture and then get their revenge on Starlight Glimmer, just like Chrysalis always wanted. I mean, you'd think that would be the plan. But it very quickly turns out that none of the Mean Six are really interested in following Chrysalis's orders. I mean, this is very much like the discorded Main Six from the Return of Harmony, the Season 2 premiere. A very welcome return to the Mean Six, in my opinion, because not only were the voice actresses having so much fun with this, the animators were going all out with so many of the facial expressions. I mean, holy cow. It was just a blast watching all of these interactions. I couldn't stop laughing every time new characters would pop up, and you'd think that at some point most of them would be able to figure out, okay, maybe this isn't who she says she is. And it's a little bit frustrating at times when you see that they're being duped that easily, and yet the scenarios are still so funny that you kind of give it a pass because it's so entertaining. I mean, these are really funny scenarios. It's a comedy of errors through and through. And yeah, it is pretty well written for the most part. And yeah, a lot of it can be predictable once you know where it's going, but there were more than a few moments in the setup where I had no idea where this was going. At first you think that Chrysalis has this grand master plan, but no, that falls apart pretty quickly. At first you think that the Mean Six might be able to take out the Main Six and take their revenge on Starlight Glimmer, but no, that falls apart pretty quickly. And you'd think that maybe once they got to the point where they take control of the elements of harmony, they can become a real threat throughout the entirety of Equestria. I mean, these are some real stakes that they're setting up here. I mean, it got me really invested on what might happen, but they had all this setup, but not a whole lot of payoff. Throughout the entirety of the episode, it's made pretty clear that none of the main six, or Starlight for that matter, ever really understood that anything was going on at all. And when Chrysalis and the mean six even reached the elements of harmony, it was basically leading up to nothing. There was a pretty horrific death scene where they turned back into pieces of wood after being withered away in a few seconds. I'm glad they were willing to put that much into a kid's show, because, yeah, that wasn't playing safe for those few seconds, but the rest of the episode, I don't know. It feels like they weren't really putting any stakes at risk, considering all this great setup that they were putting together in the beginning. I mean, what could they do with this? There's so many possibilities, and now it feels like pretty much all of it is gone, except, and this is a possibility, it's a maybe, a perhaps, the elements of harmony themselves, because each one of them in turn had switched to black for a second, right before the tree itself had reached out and then sucked the life out of the mean six. Now, you could see this as two different things. It could be that the elements of harmony themselves, whatever they are, had detected that these were false copies, that these were unworthy, that whatever the case, they were not meant to be a part of this world and just needed to be taken out. That could be one thing. Or you could see it that the elements might have been corrupted by the presence of the mean six, and that whatever essence the mean six made up has now been drawn into the elements themselves. There's no proof that any of that happened, but if they are setting that up, then yes, this episode has stakes. This episode will lead to something greater in the future. But other than that, it feels like they brought back this villain that we wanted to see for so long, who had sworn revenge on Starlight Glimmer in particular, and kind of made her into just a gag villain, where she really doesn't have much of an idea what she's doing anymore, and her actions had pretty much no consequences whatsoever. It's kind of a letdown, but it's still in the midst of a fantastically funny episode. Like I said, the voice actresses and the animators had so much fun putting these scenarios together. Seeing these interactions and wondering, what are they gonna do next? What are they gonna do next? Oh my gosh, this is fun. I was enjoying myself, even though it was a little frustrating how so many characters couldn't really figure out what was really going on. You still can't help but give it a pass because it's entertaining. It's a fun little scenario. If you can put past the fact that this is a major villain, one of the very few who is still not been redeemed, and she's kind of just not really a threat anymore, that she has no real stakes in her actions anymore, and that is a little disappointing. I can only hope that the MLP staff have subtly inserted just a little bit of stakes with the elements of harmony. But we can't be sure of that. We don't know. I still enjoyed it. I'll probably go watch it again for the many fun little scenes and for the expressions that will probably be haunting me a little bit here and there.
I've come for your souls.
The lesson about being able to forgive each other that quickly, given how everybody was kind of just misunderstanding each other, again, comedy of errors. Yeah, it's pretty much retreading old ground that we've seen many times before. I think the main purpose of this episode was just for those funny scenarios. And yeah, I can let that go. This really isn't supposed to be an episode where you go and feel like you're going to learn something. There's very few of those in the series now that I come to think of it. I don't know though. The more I look back on it, the more I can't help but feel they should have done more with this. They really, really should have. And yet, for what they had, if they were restricted, don't change the status quo and give us another scenario where you have the discorded main six and you have Chrysalis trying to do her thing yet failing. If they were constrained by those elements, I think they still did a bang-up job. I still think it was worthwhile to watch. And you never know, the community can still come up with some fantastic what-if scenarios in their own little fan fiction stories. And who knows? There may yet be some subtle plan that the writers have in mind for something we haven't yet thought of just yet. Perhaps that may be giving a bit too much credit, but perhaps not. I still had a lot of fun though. In the meantime though, I would like to hear your thoughts on the Mean Six. Given how much potential they had with this really brilliant setup, do you think that they did all they could with its payoff? Do you think it was actually better that the Mean Six never really figured out what was going on? Or would it have been better if Chrysalis and the Mean Six actually did have a confrontation? What do you think? Until next time, I am Dr. Wolf, and I look forward to hearing from you.